I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We have to have your help to do that, and we do appreciate you listening. We have a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking with Clark Kendall. He's been on the program before. He's the author of the book Middle Class Millionaire. But we're going to be talking a little bit about what's been going on in China, what's the trade war with China. We talked a lot about this Friday with Congressman Rick Crawford. The tariffs versus Hong Kong. I love how the media likes to portray the two as mutually exclusive. That's why you had all the headlines that Trump blinked. He didn't go through with the tariffs he was threatening, and China's winning the war and the trade war and everything else. And quite frankly, I don't know what to believe. I certainly don't believe the mainstream media headlines. Similarly, I don't believe, I'm sorry, the official story. Have you heard, Joe? Jeffrey Epstein officially did kill himself with a paper bed sheet. It was suicide. No word of the family of the medical examiner. I would love to know what the dinner table conversations were, what the phone calls and the text messages were between the medical examiner who declared the death of Jeffrey Epstein an actual suicide. You know what I mean? To be like, please, just rule it a suicide. Please. Yeah, he broke that bone in your neck that you're only supposed to break. Well, you can break it when you hang yourself. Probably not with paper bed sheets, but you're mostly supposed to break that when you've been strangled to death. At least that was what the report said. There were reports that came out last week. But no, it was a suicide. He killed himself with bed sheets that, according to reports, are supposed to be, made of paper. But he did it. He killed himself. The medical examiner's family was like, hey, we really love you. We would like to continue to have Thanksgiving Day dinners and Christmas. We'd like to continue celebrating your life throughout the years. Hey, listen, I know what that sounds like. I just said, Paul, you're peddling more conspiracy. Hey, listen, all I'm saying is nobody believes this. Nobody believes the official story. Nobody does. You have this one guy who is essentially like the bookkeeper in The Untouchables. Anyone ever seen that movie? Al Capone's bookkeeper was the key. That's essentially who this guy is. And, he's got the goods on people who are much more powerful. The people that don't make the headlines. Not to mention what appears to be very, very powerful politicians that are going to I think what we'll find are they've been puppets this whole time. Excuse me, not actually making decisions. Because, it looks like this was a giant blackmail operation. And then you have the madam, Ghislaine Maxwell, caught, coincidentally, just out of the blue. She's caught at an In-N-Out Burger reading a book on the deaths of CIA agents. And we're all supposed to believe that was just a coincidence? That you're reading that particular book? There's something more there that just doesn't make sense. That's... And again, no, I'm not peddling conspiracy. I'm just talking like, you really think that that's what happened? Like that was all just like, oh, well, we found her. She's the most talked about woman in the world right now, about what she did with Jeffrey Epstein, what she did in procuring these young girls. And so she's just going to go eat at an In-N-Out Burger and casually read where the Washington Post can photograph the book she's reading on CIA deaths? Come on. No. Well, anyway. Yeah, so that happened. Over the weekend, his death was conveniently ruled a suicide. There's going to be a lot more developments. There are reports that the prison guards are not cooperating. Surprise, surprise. Last week I said, you know who I wouldn't want to be is an honest prison guard that works at that Manhattan Corrections Unit. I wouldn't want to be because you're about to get framed with something. I wouldn't want to be a straight-laced, honest guy there. Let me tell you. My goodness. We're learning so much. By the way, let's just take the story at face value. The same government that wants to take away your guns, or parts of the government that want to take away your guns, politicians that can't even keep a prisoner safe, who's already tried to commit suicide, we think, was already on suicide watch. Oh, but he wasn't on suicide watch. Well, after he died, he was conveniently no longer on suicide watch because everybody was saying, well, that makes no sense. You can't be on suicide watch and actually commit suicide. That's not how it works. The story changes every day with something like this, and this isn't exactly it's not like we're trying to interpret what's going on in a war zone, 2,000 miles away or something. This is happening in our own backyard. This is happening in our own country. And so when the story changes so frequently, it's just, well, now nobody knows what to believe. Nobody will ever, whatever they say, nobody's ever going to believe it. That may be the most positive thing that comes out of this, again, is that nobody's believing the truth. I'm sorry, not the truth. Nobody's believing what the mainstream media is telling them, right? On the left, on the right, and the center, they doubt the whole thing. Anyway, we'll see what happens. 870-275-9799. We have, let's see here, two big stories in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette this weekend. We're going to get to those next hour, but I'm going to read you the headlines now. There are released unsealed documents and related to the and related to Jeremy Hutchinson, the governor's nephew. Jeremy Hutchinson, when he pled guilty to the campaign finance fraud, they have now released some documents, and files show, this is from Lisa Hammersley, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, headline, Files Show Arkansas Lawyer Target of FBI in 2013. Goodson firms $20,000 payments to ex-Senator Hutchinson drew inquiry. This has to do with a retainer, which they would disagree that it wasn't a retainer. It was more like they're splitting future legal fees that hadn't even developed yet. A referral fee, if you will. John Goodson, a trial lawyer, was paying Jeremy Hutchinson $20,000 a month. They started this as a freshman. This guy goes in and is a freshman senator and is immediately getting $20,000 a month from John Goodson and his firm. Yes, the same Goodson that was the husband, I believe, of Supreme Court Justice Courtney Goodson. Are they still together? I don't know. It seems like I heard something. We'll get to that. There's also, that was on Sunday. Then this morning I read by Michael Wickline, who at the end of this piece lists all of these former legislators who are now lobbyists who are representing these big law firms. And it is something that people are not supposed to know about. So kudos to Michael Wickline for listing these, for putting this information out there for public consumption. This has to do with a text message that was sent from a lobbyist to Duncan Baird about Andrea Lee, the state auditor Andrea Lee. Headline, Lee's ties to law firms noted in retiree system effort. And we'll tell you about that coming up at in the next hour as well. it's kind of a strange story. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Just in time. Well, it's a complicated story. Just trying to wrap my head around it. But we will be talking about that as well on the program today. But where I would like to start is where I left off on Friday. Friday, we told you about Hillary Clinton's emails. A Senate Intelligence Committee report detailed that Hillary Clinton set up the private server and had her emails forwarded to an email address with the name Carter Heavy Industries. Now, if you Google Carter Heavy Industries, you will find out that Carter Heavy Industries is a company in the Shandong province of China. And that's odd, isn't it? That's very, very odd. Why would the emails being forwarded to the communist Chinese government? Well, in fairness, we don't know that for sure. Why someone would pick that name as a Gmail address is baffling. Well, the Daily Caller has more on this. Headline: Daily Caller: Clinton IT aide who defied subpoena, says he created a cryptic Gmail account and sent it nearly all of Hillary Clinton's emails. We're, of course, talking about a guy with the last name of Gambetta. Here's some of the bullet points. Let's read the Daily Caller's piece here. All but 4 of Hillary Clinton's 30,000 emails were copied, likely secretly, to a Gmail address called carterheavyindustries@gmail.com. The FBI says the account was linked to Paul Gambetta, an IT aide Clinton hired to use BleachBit to destroy emails after they were subpoenaed and misled FBI agents. Now, Paul Gambetta, we know he BleachBit, and he was the guy that did it because he was stupid enough to go on Reddit and claim that he was representing a very VIP person and that he needed to know exactly how to do this. Gambetta said he sent all of her emails to the Gmail account as part of trying to copy them to a new server. When an intel agent discovered the copying to a third-party account, he said Peter Strzok seemed uninterested. That's because he wanted Hillary Clinton to be president. That's why. The finding, Daily Caller News Foundation, the finding, which has not been previously reported, means that Clinton's emails, including classified ones and ones which were later deleted, likely existed on Google's U.S.-based servers. The FBI said in the report that it knew this and of the suspicious explanation for it, but did not alert other intelligence agencies or the public, according to the report. Well, that means the NSA has it, because the NSA has everything. The FBI says that the suspicious Gmail address was set up by IT aide Paul Gambetta, who worked for a company that managed Clinton's server. Gambetta is the same IT aide who used BleachBit to permanently erase copies of Clinton's emails after they were subpoenaed by the House, misled the FBI about it, and was given immunity from prosecution, all while asking for basic computing advice from Reddit. There you go. It's a better way of saying it than I just said it. We'll keep going down here. And so the question is, is there still a China link? Oh, absolutely there's a China link. Because you can't get around the fact that if you Google Carter Heavy Industries, you're going to find that is Arkansas's favorite province, Shandong. It's a Chinese province that houses all these companies that we're trying to do business with here in the state of Arkansas. Rui, Sun Paper, they're from the Shandong province, okay? And so scrolling down in this article, I want you to get to the part where it says suspicion of Chinese ties, okay? Frustrated by the FBI's attitude to a possible national security issue, the ICIG Inspector General McCullough and Rucker and the ICIG investigator did basic research that found that a company with a similar name, Carter Heavy Industries, was based in Shandong, China. According to the Senate report, Shandong is a province that houses multiple schools where Chinese hackers allegedly study and infiltrate Western systems. Now, you see how that's highlighted right there, the word infiltrate? If you click on that, it goes to a New York Times article from 2010. Okay? You see this? Headline by John Markoff and David Barboza, February 18th, 2010. 2 China schools said to be tied to online attacks. San Francisco, a series of online attacks on Google and dozens of other American corporations have been traced to computers at 2 educational institutions in China, including one with close ties to the Chinese military, say people involved in the investigation. They also said the attacks aimed at stealing trade secrets and computer codes and capturing email of Chinese human rights activists may have begun as early as April, months earlier than previously believed. Google announced on January 12th that it and other companies had been subjected to sophisticated attacks that probably came from China. Of course, now Google is cooperating. They've submitted to China. Computer security experts, including investigators from the National Security Agency, have been working since then to pinpoint the source of the attacks. Until recently, the trail had led only to servers in Taiwan. If supported by further investigation, the findings raise as many questions as they answer, including the possibility that some of the attacks came from China, but not necessarily from the Chinese government or even from Chinese sources. Tracing the attacks further back to an elite Chinese university and a vocational school is a breakthrough and difficult task. Evidence acquired by the United States military contractor that faced the same attacks on Google, blah, 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 blah. Scrolling down, the Chinese schools involved are the, now, I don't know if I can pronounce this right, are the Shanghai Jiaotong University and the Lanzing Vocational School, according to several people with knowledge of the investigation who asked for anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the inquiry. Again, this is an article from 2010. Now, I'm not really sure quite how to pronounce. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that particular university, but is it the same university that Governor Asa Hutchinson spoke at when he said this when he was in China trying to recruit businesses here at Arkansas? Listen.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail.
Oh, back it up a little bit.
Beijing is also using it on land, at sea,
is this
in the air,
right here?
and
This
space.
is the audio. This is where we're looking.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with.
And I don't know if that's the same one, actually, because this one's specific. That's Shanghai, Tsinghua, unless that's how you say Shanghai. Maybe it is the same. I don't know. Chinese schools involved are Shanghai. Anyway, they're in the Shandong province. Yeah, they're in the Shandong. Now, he said, though, he was in Beijing, and I can't find a university in there in Beijing. Anyway, he spoke at a university over there. And because I'm not Chinese, I quite frankly can't make heads or tails of all this. But but it certainly sounds similar. I mean, we certainly can say that. I mean, that's Shanghai. Is that how you spell Shanghai? I mean, is that how you say it when you think of the city, Shanghai? But, Shanghai, Shangwang, maybe they pronounce it that way, university. Anyway, the bottom line is this. It doesn't make any sense for Arkansas to continue these economic development deals with the Chinese when Hillary Clinton had a private server and they were she was forwarding all of her her classified emails to a Gmail account that links to a company in the Shandong province, and we're going into Shandong trying to bring Chinese communist entities here to Arkansas. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why Paul Combetta. I think that's a real question is, does Paul Combetta work for the Chinese government? Is he being paid by the Chinese? Because what do they do? Where do they go into Mozambique? Where do they go into Cuba? Wherever they go, the first thing the Chinese government does before they come in is they grease the politicians. Why would we think they would treat the United States any different? I don't think they are. Back in a minute.
Hi, folks.
I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Welcome back to the program. We have on the line Congressman Rick Crawford is with us. Rick, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
Always great to have you on, sir. What is going on? What's like the biggest thing on your mind right now, or one of the biggest issues you're working on in D.C. right now for the people?
Well, I think we really need to focus on USMCA. That's an important thing right now. That's basically the revised version of the trade deal with Canada and Mexico, United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. That seems to have kind of gotten lost in amongst a lot of other issues. I just came off of my ag tour and visited with farmers. I was down in Marietta at the cotton station yesterday, and this is really weighing pretty heavily on them. And the other thing that, quite frankly, it does, it strengthens our hand with China, knowing that we have this tight relationship with our two closest neighbors, and this should be somewhat of a template for how we proceed in future trade deals. So,
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Yeah, considering the pronounced suicide, yes, the medical examiner, Jeffrey Epstein, did in fact kill himself, according to the medical examiner. Again, I was just pontificating about the conversations this medical examiner had with his or her family. Like, please, you know, we love you. Please just say this guy killed himself so we can move on with our lives, please. Chris on Facebook writes, Dad, please get into a less dangerous line of work. Maybe be a paratrooper or take a position with special ops. But stop having to pronounce high-profile people dead or not. Or was it self-inflicted or not? We've got half an hour left in this first hour. Happy Monday, by the way. It's the beginning of the week. And I know many of you are like, oh, no, not again. But, hey, we're gonna make it to Friday. Don't worry. When we come back, Mr. Clark Kendall back with us. We're going to talk about the trade war. And then we got explosive stories. I actually think the story we just covered is way more explosive than anything that you've read in the Gazette over the weekend. But explosive stories nonetheless, the last 2 days in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We'll talk about those as well next. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Be really important to get that done. Unfortunately, it's kind of bogged down in more of a political consideration and a policy consideration, as often is the case in Washington. And Speaker Pelosi does not want to give the perception that Donald Trump is winning on anything. And so she's sort of holding this thing hostage, for lack of a better term, looking for a way. I mean, the reality is I think she knows it needs to happen, but she's looking for a way to attach it to a piece of legislation that, produces a win for her and can sort of marginalize the USMCA as sort of a, ancillary type of thing, and the president doesn't get a whole lot of credit for that. And so I think it's largely a political consideration.
You talk about your agriculture tour, and of course we are in the middle of this trade war with China. We talk about it every time you're on the program. We also have this situation in China with Hong Kong, which they're waiving the American.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we go. Welcome back to the show, folks. 870-275-9799. Good morning to you. All last week we were talking about China, the trade war. We did a lot of this on Friday with Congressman Rick Crawford, who is with us. Also, how that relates to Hong Kong. And we finally have a few headlines here. Here's one. Trump ties trade deal to China action in Hong Kong, suggests meeting. This is exactly what I was saying last week when we had all of those articles saying that Trump was bluffing. Trump, didn't have the guts to go through with, putting the tariffs on, and the media was just very lazy, I felt like. It's like these two things, the Hong Kong situation and the tariffs, are not mutually exclusive because, the president seems to look at things in the totality of trying to get what he wants. Here to talk more about this, we've got the author of Middle Class Millionaire, Surprisingly Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth. Clark Kendall is with us, and you can get the book at Amazon.com. Clark, how are you, sir?
Great. It's an honor to be on your show this morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So what do you think about everything that's going on, with the president last week in trade, also with Hong Kong? They're waving the American flag. They want their freedom.
Yes, I agree. Well, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly with Larry Kudlow. It is the best for everybody worldwide to specialize and not to have trade tariffs. But when China is stealing our intellectual property time and time again, you got to throw up the flag and say, you got to go to war. We are at a trade war. I share with people, one of my clients owns a company that manufactures and distributes and sells camera stands. And he has a domestic patent on it, and he has an international patent. But time and time again, he's competing against knockoffs coming out of China. And there's really nothing he can do to fight these knockoffs. And the fact of the matter is, he manufactures this product here in the United States. It's hurting U.S. workers here in the United States. I did have the opportunity to go to Hong Kong 2 years ago when I attended the CFA conference in Hong Kong, and I had probably 5 years ago I had been to China, and there is a world of difference between Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong is a very well-educated community. When I went out and met the people, they were very versed as far as what was going on in the world. All the streets in Hong Kong, because of the British, are in English. The kids are taught English in school. So it is a completely different culture, and I completely understand why the Hong Kong residents are protesting what's going on in their community, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah, it seems that they're already accustomed to a certain level of freedom, of basic human rights, and I think they're very worried. And I mean, if you're somebody like Beijing that is in a trade, or China, mainland China, and you're in this trade war with the United States, and they look and they see these protests and they see them waving the American flag, this is a powder keg, isn't it?
It is. It's very much so, very much so. And everyone said, I'm going to put these trade tariffs. Trump said, I'm going to put these trade tariffs against China, and they're going to pay for it. And the fact that they've actually devalued their yuan, the fact we put a 10 or 15% tariff, when they devalue their yuan 10 or 15%, that in essence offsets the trade barrier. I think we're at war. And my parents, my grandparents, went to war and they fought, and we had to tighten the belts back here in the United States. We're not going into a physical war with China. We're going into a trade war, and probably at worst, we're going to have a rise in inflation, maybe 1 or 2%. So when we go to Walmart or Target, things are going to cost a little bit more because of the things we import from China. But, I think it's a small cost to pay to stand up to China. I also attended the CFA conference this year in London, which is a group of portfolio managers from throughout the world, 65 different countries. And time, when they heard I was from Washington, D.C., they said, thank God Trump is standing up to China, because China's been bullying us. He's been bullying the United States, and thank God that Trump is doing this, not only for the country, but also for the world.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So do you think that the president not instituting those tariffs is his attempt to maybe have a meeting with President? How do you say that? How do you say his name, Joe? Is it Chi? I can never remember, Clark. But do you think he's wanting to? You think he's wanting to set up a meeting? You think he did not institute the new tariffs because of Hong Kong? Is that what you believe?
I think it's politics, and what goes behind the scenes, I really don't know. And it seems like to me he's pushing on the gas sometimes, and he's pushing on the brakes at other times. But it's a Indy 500 race, and I think he's going around the track as fast as he can, and so I think you and I and the general public just don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I think he's trying to get them to come back to the table, one way or another, and they need to come back to the table, probably even more so than we need to come back to the table with them.
Yeah, and this is what I'm wondering, because I guess probably 2-3 weeks ago, you started to see the headlines that said, China's done. They're not going to negotiate anymore on trade. They're just going to hope that Donald Trump loses and they're going to do everything they can to help the Democrats, and, they want to work with another administration. That's a pretty big gamble for them, though, because if the president pulls out a victory, that's going to be even worse for China, you would imagine. And can they wait until, 2021, January 2021, to do things differently? I mean, that's another question. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think China will come back before the 2020 elections and actually get a trade deal with the United States?
Well, their economy is slowing down much more. On the opposite side of the coin, our economy is very strong, and I think, I think a waiting game hurts them more so than hurts the United States. And to be quite frank with you, the day before President Trump was elected, I would have put my money that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And so I think to predict that far out is crazy. So I think, as I said, I think time is in our favor versus their favor, whoever takes political office next.
So can I ask you a personal question? You say you're in Washington, D.C., and you support the president. What does that town feel like? I'm sure you have people around you that that also support the president, but I would imagine that the town, the swamp, if you will, they don't take too kindly to the president and some of his policies.
I think quite frankly, the business leaders in general, they appreciate kind of what he's doing on a macro basis. I think, a lot of people get very frustrated with the tweets, commenting, who won the Kentucky Derby or not won the Kentucky Derby. I think that's frustrating. I think that's frustrating for the country moving forward. But when you look at kind of these strategic, economic initiatives, I think in general, at the end of the day, people kind of appreciate what he's doing. And it's when you have a discussion about that, more people will agree with you than disagree with you.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I think, of course, a lot of Americans, especially in flyover country, I think a lot of them love the tweets in terms of they just love the access that Twitter provides. Here's a way for the president to communicate directly. Yeah, he gets in trouble when he tweets. I kind of have this opinion of the president that is the way he is publicly, it comes across as honest, versus for years we get politicians that put forth a theatrical presence to the public, but behind closed doors they're really somebody different. I'm not saying that doesn't happen with the president, but I think more often than not you're actually getting his honest opinion and the way he really is, and I think people they kind of feel that that's more genuine than what they've been getting, for their entire lives in American politics.
I won't disagree with you there. I agree with you.
Hey, well, tell us real quick about your book, Middle Class Millionaire, Surprisingly Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth. Remind us again why you wanted to write this book.
Well, I've been in the investment management business for 30 years. I focus on what I call middle-class millionaires, people, $500,000 to $10 million of investable assets. It's a how-to book. First third is how to accumulate. The middle third is, I'm 50-something. How much do I need to retire? How do I calculate that? And the last is, I've retired. What money do I spend? But throughout the book, I call them experience share stories. I share things about the 90-year-old woman who had $6 million. We were 90% in stocks. And I said to her, don't you think, we have too much in stocks? And she goes, Sonny, I'll never be able to spend $6 million. You're really investing this money for my children and grandchildren, and I think they should be invested in stocks. And I was like, so I go through several of those kind of experience share stories throughout the book. And it's a good, easy read, 3 or 4 hours to read. And I think it hopefully gives individuals that they too can be a middle-class millionaires, because quite frankly, that's what makes America great. Anybody, through hard work and discipline, can become financially, secure and strong for the rest of their lives.
Wow. I appreciate it, Clark Kendall. Best of luck to you, sir. I'd like to have you on again sometime.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor, Paul.
Absolutely. Thank you. Clark Kendall, everybody. Again, middle-class millionaire, surprisingly simple strategies to grow and enjoy your wealth. You can get it at Amazon. Folks, we're going to take a break, going to reset here. Again, big stories in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette this weekend and this morning, trying to lay out really the pattern of corruption between people paying attorneys who are lawmakers to pass legislation. Can we all agree that that's wrong? Or that we don't think that you shouldn't get paid extra to pass legislation for people, right? You're already being paid. Well, some files have been unsealed, let's say. I was going to say declassified because we want the declassification. We want declass so bad, don't we? No, they've been unsealed, and we have some interesting breadcrumbs into some previous investigations between the FBI and Arkansas politicians as well as attorneys. We'll tell you about that coming up at 7:05. We're going to take a break, going to reset. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org. American flag. And, I haven't really seen too many articles. There's been a few now since I originally criticized it. The president did hold off on the new tariffs, and there was all these headlines of, the president bluffing, the president doesn't know what he's doing, he blinked. But and there was hardly anything that said, well, maybe he held off on the new tariffs because it had something to do with what's going on in Hong Kong. I mean, not even, this idea that it's just, that these two things are mutually exclusive. It's just laziness on the press's part.
No, absolutely. I mean, here's what we're seeing in Hong Kong right now. This is 30 years on from Tiananmen Square. And basically what you're seeing is a large number of people, and not a group of people doesn't do it justice. We're talking about a huge number of people in Hong Kong that had been, under the previous government, fully availed of their freedom. I mean, and for whatever reason.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Rejoined. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we didn't cover this, but we did not. But down in Mississippi, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement decided to raid some chicken plants. And did you hear the reports afterwards about the people who were? But did you hear the reports afterwards after they got all these illegal immigrants who were employed by these plants? They're obviously, the plants had to hire people. Guess what? There was a line of American citizens that were applying for the jobs after that, according to reports. The jobs Americans just won't do. Go ahead, Joe.
This actually goes into what I want to talk about. After this came out, or after this news hit the mainstream, I saw so many people saying, well, if the illegal immigrants are being taken to jail and being taken away, why aren't the company owners being taken the same way? Because they're the ones who broke the law. It's like, well, you do realize that CEOs of companies don't hire the people under them.
Yeah.
Like, they don't actually have, like, CEOs may hire people that are on the board, and they may hire their chief officers, but they don't hire the middle management. They don't hire the lower level workers.
Well, of course not, but they are ultimately responsible, I would say. As in terms of, I would say that the buck does need to stop with them at some point. Because what we have here, the reason the border is so porous, the reason this has been going on for 40 years is because you have Republicans and Democrats that don't actually want to fix the problem. You have big business interests that want a cheap labor market, and you have Democrats that want future votes and a future underclass.
Well, I agree, but in this specific case, I don't think the buck stops with the person that runs the company. Well, I think the buck stops with the people who do the hiring, because they're the ones who made the decision to hire the cheap labor to begin with, despite what the CEO may want or feel, in terms of like what they want as their labor force. The people who did the hiring are the ones that are responsible for actually putting these people where they were.
I take your point there. I do think, though, at some point, we would have less government agencies costing companies millions of dollars a year in compliance, period. And this is kind of a different issue. If you actually did hold the people, CEOs, accountable. You know what I mean? Like if you actually had a personal stake in, not because I mean, think about what they're doing to the economy here. Think about what they're doing by having these policies. By not doing their due diligence to make sure that you're a citizen. Well, everybody knows it's a problem. It's not like people don't know that you're hiring an illegal immigrant. I think that would go a long way. If you have these really stiff penalties that actually do apply, I think the incentive factor there is going to kick in, and you're going to be like, you know what, I value my freedom, or I value my wealth, and I don't want to have to pay these exorbitant fees.
Right, and I agree. I think, like what you said, that the buck at some point does stop with the people in the executive offices, and I agree. I'm talking about this specific buck of hiring the individuals. I think it stops the people who hired them. It doesn't go all the way up the ladder, but I think in terms of policies and lobbying for more policies that do impact the businesses, I think the buck does stop with them at that level.
The raids, again, 7 cities, 6 work sites, 5 companies, 680 people were arrested. This is the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers swept through agricultural processing plants in Mississippi, capping a year-long investigation. So this is Pico Foods, Koch Foods. I don't believe that's any relation to the Koch brothers. I could be wrong there, but I think that's completely different. They're among the nation's largest chicken producers. This has got people in Arkansas basically waiting, when's it our turn? That's what I've been told. You've got people in Arkansas at our chicken processing places, and people are saying, when's ICE going to be here? As a matter of fact, this headline from Leslie Newell Peacock over at the Arkansas Times, Joe, show them this one. ICE raid fears in Fayetteville unfounded. So there was the appearance back on August the 9th of an Immigration and Customs Enforcement transport bus at the Comfort Inn in Fayetteville. The Arkansas United director, Mireya Wraith, reported it on her Facebook page. State Representative Nicole Clowney then called the Washington County Sheriff's Office, according to the Arkansas Times. And she was told that the bus was not there for a raid, but was there to pick up undocumented people, illegal aliens, being held at the county jail. So tensions are pretty high right now. There are people now. I think that there was a raid sometime up there. I think there was a raid in northwest Arkansas last year sometime, if memory serves correct. But that's a lot of people. Now, of course, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, very, very, very left of center. They disagree with this. Democrats disagree with this because they think that the immigrant community, well, they are. I think they definitely are. Clowney said she believed people in the immigrant community, quote, are operating in a place of fear right now after the ICE raid at the chicken processing plants in Mississippi. Here's the thing, man. Like, if that were to happen, and if something like that were to happen in northwest Arkansas, and you just had a mass arrest, deportation of people taking, who are here legally, would they fill? Would there be a long line of Arkansans applying for those jobs? It's a good question. Again, there are reports that after the Mississippi raids that they, obviously the Mississippi plants, they had to rehire, right? They got to find labor. And there's a report. The report was that the people they were hiring were, in fact, American citizens, which flies in the face of everything that you hear about how, well, there are just some jobs that Americans won't do. Now, aside from the fact that that's true, because a lot of times the government and our welfare system will pay people to not do them. Will pay people to stay at home and not do them. Now but that's a different issue in and of itself. We're just talking about the fact that these are jobs, that's what you hear, they're jobs Americans won't do, which, by the way, I don't know how the left gets by with saying that for so long. Like, there is certainly a tinge, there's certainly classism, elitism, if not racism, that, well, you're an American. You're not supposed to be picking strawberries or working at chicken processing plants. Those are jobs that you just won't do. Hey, but Mexicans will do them. How have the Democrats and also Republicans, because, again, this is a Democrat and a Republican problem, because they have allowed the border to be what it is for decades. When the president said that the border is a crisis and the Democrats don't believe it, half the country didn't believe it, it's because the media has refused to cover it as such for 30 years. Right? This has been going on for a long time. The human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the child trafficking has been going on for a long time. The impact this has on the middle class and be able to work your way up into the middle class by starting working at jobs, that Americans just won't do. This has been a giant disruptor in our economy for decades. And if those reports are accurate about the rehiring, my goodness, folks, it blows up the entire narrative of the status quo, what we've been told for a long time as to why we need the cheap labor or why the Democrats want the future voting bloc when there's this eventual path to citizenship. Remember when the president was going to give the Democrats everything they wanted to fix DACA? Do you remember that? Hey, I'll give you DACA. We'll give them a pathway to citizenship. I just need funding for the border wall. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said no, because they'd rather the DACA children remain victims so that they can be exploited for political power than to actually fix the problem and give not just the president a win, but the country a win, even though I would have been against it. It would have been, okay, nobody would have been exactly happy, but everybody would have gotten a little bit of what they wanted. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
The decision was made to return Hong Kong back to mainland China, and that's fine, but these are some people who've been brought up with the idea of freedom and liberty and things of this nature, and now they're being deprived of that by an oppressive Chinese regime, and there's evidence that supports or that suggests that they're moving on Hong Kong militarily. Well, that's what happened in Tiananmen Square. Let's not forget about that in 1989, which was a defining moment, for the Chinese. And the other thing that's going on, while all this is taking place, should be no surprise that they're taking the position that they're taking, China with regard to Hong Kong. But keep in mind that China is the most, possibly the most repressive regime on the planet. Here it is, 2019, and they're still throwing people in re-education camps. They're still engaged in forced labor of their own citizens, tantamount to slavery. They punish religious and ethnic minorities severely and subject them to this type of treatment. And all the while, we have these people in the United States talking about our good friends in China and how we need, the president's off base and we need China. It's like they need us in more ways than one. They need our leadership to say, you can't treat your people like that and expect to be rewarded. They need us to be a leader in the Pacific Rim, which we haven't been, but we should be. But the fact of the matter is, and I told this group of farmers yesterday, and all I got was a whole lot of nodding heads, we have to change and retool the relationship with China. I think the best case in that scenario for us with regard to China is that they become a retail consumer of U.S. products. The idea that they're going to be a wholesale destination, a wholesale market, has probably changed. But that doesn't mean that that can't be a significant market for us. It's just going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to go through countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and continue to develop our relationships with those countries and assume a much more proactive leadership posture in the Pacific Rim to address China. But the idea that we're going to everything's going to be great and we're going to have a great relationship with China going forward is probably not realistic. Doesn't mean that we're disregarding the fact that it's a significant marketplace. It's just we're going to have to change the dynamics of how we engage to access that significant marketplace. And the other thing we need to do is always be willing to step up and call them out on their bad behavior. For example, the things I mentioned before, where they're oppressing the Uyghur minority population in Western China. It's egregious, the things that they're doing. This 2009.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hour number 2, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. 870-275-9799. This headline, files show Arkansas lawyer target of FBI in 2013. Goodson's firm $20,000 payments, or Goodson firm's $20,000 payments to ex-Senator Hutchinson drew an inquiry. Lisa Hammersley has the big scoop about the newly released documents, the FBI documents. Now, this is like 2 weeks in a row that we've got the same, document dump people are going through. Of course, last week this time we were going over the John Woods flashing event where he stormed into Rusty Cranford's office, threw his shirt up, said, "I'm not wearing a wire," and demanded $30,000. Which really exposed, it really kind of, honestly, I feel like that Monday broadcast kind of fueled the rest of the episodes last week, because it dawned on me how corrupt Arkansas really is when we have public officials who have to, go to their buddies and show that they're not wearing a wire, which means they knew the FBI was potentially on their tails, and they continued going about their corrupt business dealings anyway. You know what I'm saying? And then that actually sparked another thought process, which was every time the Chinese come into another country to do business with them and exploit their resources, whether it's the minerals in Zimbabwe or Cuba or Mozambique, they always, without fail, they grease the politicians first. And my question then was, in light of how corrupt we know Arkansas politicians are, what makes us think China, or can be, not all of them, not all of the Arkansas politicians are corrupt, but what makes us think they would treat Arkansas any different than a Zimbabwe, right? They wouldn't. We would be naive to assume that they would. So really the FBI documents from last week really kind of fueled this entire thing. And then we had the Senate Intelligence Committee come out with their report saying Hillary Clinton was forwarding her emails to an email address that was set up by Paul Combetta, who has immunity, who was the one that bleach bit her server. But that was forwarded to a Carter Heavy Industries at gmail.com. If you search for Carter Heavy Industries, it comes up a Shandong Province company. Well, the Shandong Province is where we constantly want, we want companies from the Shandong Province coming into Arkansas, according to our leaders and according to the economic development deals that they've set up. That's what we've been doing the last, 4, 5, 6 years. And it's very odd, and it really signals, I think, that we've got to stop these economic development deals with the Chinese as soon as possible. We need to pull out. We need to say no thank you, especially in light of the revelations of where these emails were being forwarded using that name. It certainly is a strange name to use. When you Google it, do a simple Google search of Carter Heavy Industries, and it comes up the Shandong Carter Heavy Industries. It is a Chinese company. And it's the same province that Rui and Sun Paper, and these are not private companies. These are Communist Party entities. These are Communist Party assets posing as companies. So, I actually think that is a much bigger story in relating to Arkansas than even these new documents and what else they reveal. But let's get into it. The governor's nephew, Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, $500,000 in payments he received from John Goodson's Texarkana law firm. To be clear, attorney John Goodson has not been charged with any public corruption crime and has denied any wrongdoing. We do know that Hutchinson resigned, but there are 16 documents related to the FBI's Hutchinson-Goodson investigation. So apparently there was an investigation where they said the FBI was saying, is there something illegal that's going on here with Jeremy Hutchinson getting $20,000 a month? Now, there are also other reports that during this time, I believe Jeremy Hutchinson couldn't make his car payments, which is crazy when you're thinking about $20,000 a month. That's crazy. I would kill for that. Whoa, Joe, slow down, buddy. Not really. I'm not declaring. At least 16,000. I'm sorry. At least 16 documents. The records include informants' claims, data requests, case opening and closing papers, FBI interviews. Many of those documents share the same label, Goodson's and Hutchinson's names, quote, corruption of state and local officials, state-level sensitive investigative matters, SIM. So, what were the payments to go for? Well, apparently there was a joint venture agreement between Hutchinson and Goodson's law partner, okay, to fund the expenses related to the operation of Hutchinson's law firm. So both of these different law firms were trying to investigate, prosecute, and develop complex litigation matters. Essentially, what they're going to say is, our law firm was paying Hutchinson $20,000 a month, so he would refer cases to us. Refer potential legal matters to us. Now, this differs from what other people think, and I think what is obvious is that, I mean, come on, we know what's happened in the recent history. We know that Jeremy Hutchinson has admitted now to taking bribes from Preferred Family Health Care. He's pled guilty. He was bribed by Preferred Family Health Care. So many people assume that this was also a bribe to pass legislation. There are two FBI informants that said that the $20,000 a month was a bribe. A former girlfriend of Hutchinson, Julie McGee, who I will remind you was asked in the other court case. This is actually the court case I think that he pled guilty to as well, having to do with campaign finance and tax fraud. Julie McGee was asked, "Did you ever work for the campaign?" She was asked this in court. Her response was, "If keeping him sexually satisfied was working for the campaign, then yes, I worked for the campaign." So his former girlfriend, Julie McGee, told the FBI in 2012 that Hutchinson met with Goodson in Texarkana and afterward told her Goodson had put him on retainer for $20,000 per month for the purpose of having Hutchinson change wording in a law before the Arkansas State Senate. Hutchinson referred privately to this as Goodson's Law, according to an FBI report dated June 12, 2013. Again, quote, the witness believed the change in the law would make it favorable to the tort work Goodson does. Now, let me stop there and let me just say, who's thankful that Issue 1, the tort reform bill, failed? Me, I am. I'm thankful that who's thankful that they didn't make any progress getting a new tort reform? me, I am. And the reason I am, quite frankly, folks, is because when you combine this piece of information along with the nursing home situation, right, where the nursing homes were trying to weaken, protections for people, who are abused, and then you have this back and forth. There's no question you've got, the trial lawyers, and you have people that want to protect the trial by jury. Then you have others that, listen. I believe tort reform is a good thing to an extent. I do. I really do. I think loser pay is a good thing to do. But I was against issue 1 because it was going to allow the legislature, people that are being paid $20,000 a month, it was going to allow the legislature to set rules of evidence. Now, I know this is a trial lawyer paying $20,000, but if trial lawyers are doing it, you got to know nursing home owners are doing it too. And then you've got all kinds of ways, if you're getting paid by Medicaid money, to be corrupt. Essentially, there are all kinds of ways to be corrupt down there. If you want to find your financial niche, you can do it. You too can be the next Jeremy Hutchinson. If you want to be him, you can be him. So yeah, I'm just glad. Before we pursue this, I think we gotta take a time out. We gotta let the dust settle so we can figure out who not to listen to when it comes to writing common sense tort reform. Okay? If that's even possible. Is it even possible in the state? Is it possible for us to do anything in the state where somebody doesn't make a bunch of money afterwards? Right? The casinos, medical marijuana. Is it possible for us to do something that's big, that where somebody's not getting a giant check at the end of all of this? It should be possible, but I have my doubts. Another FBI report, quote, Hutchinson worked hard at doing this, passing Goodson's law. However, it did not pass during the latest legislative session. Boy, don't you know that people involved are glad that this didn't pass, because had it passed, then you would have a little bit more to stand on when it comes to this is what, you pay $20,000 a month and this is the result you got. And then you made X amount of dollars because of the change. They started this in February 2015. Actually, no, the FBI closed the investigation between Goodson and Hutchinson February 2015, and then they reopened it in March 2017 because they got new information. Let's see, keep going here. Again, the Gazette reports the Texarkana lawyer, John Goodson, denied being under federal investigation in an Arkansas Times blog interview on June 11th. There goes the Democrat again. The Democrat Gazette. Listen, I don't mind doing this. I did it for the Blue Hog Report the other day. I'll do it for Arkansas Times. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette is now a blog. If they're going to start calling the Blue Hog Report as just a blog, Arkansas Times is a blog. They use this term to try to undermine other news sites that they're quoting from. You got to stop it. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette, you guys have abandoned printing the paper for the most part. I think you still print Sunday editions or whatever. And I think you're doing some good reporting here. But come on, guys. Stop it, okay? The Arkansas Times, the Blue Hog Report, you use the word blog trying to question their credibility. I think we're past that, okay? This is the 21st century. You guys yourself are going pretty much all digital as well. So what does that make you guys, all right? Anyway, I know that's just one word, but it's a pet peeve of mine. I'm noticing it more and more where you want to refer to and somehow that's less credible, yet you're citing it. Anyway. Let's see. Goodson, and that might not have been the intent. There might not have been the intent to use the word blog, okay? I'm probably overreacting. Goodson also was quoted as saying he didn't sign the agreement authorizing monthly payments to Hutchinson, but yet they've got the agreement right here. A joint venture agreement signed by Goodson and his partner, January 3rd, 2011 for $20,000 a month. That was, listen to this. This is what was crazy to me. That date was 7 days before the start of the Arkansas legislature's 88th session, where Hutchinson took his seat as a freshman senator. It was all he ever knew. Now, I want you to think about that. That is wild. Jeremy Hutchinson didn't have to wait to be corrupted. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, well, he votes, he's in there for a little while. He was because he was a senator, he was getting $20,000 a month 7 days before they convened session. I mean, it's almost like he didn't even have a chance, I mean, and that's not an excuse, but you know what I mean? There's something really sad about that if you think about it. There's something really, really sad about that. That he gets this money immediately. I mean, maybe it's the last name or something, I don't know, but so the Arkansas Bar Association has now weighed in. The Professional Ethics Committee, they were discussing joint venture agreements, and this particular contract came up between John Goodson and former state senator Jeremy Hutchinson. And the Arkansas Bar Association has said that these agreements are permissible, but to be very careful and to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Okay. Well, why don't you just, if you're an attorney and you're a legislator, just don't do it. Well, how are we going to practice law, Paul? I don't know. Maybe you should pick between one or the other, right? Maybe you should practice law, make your money, and then you can go down and not have to worry about it. Actually, I would prefer a lawyer that's already made his money making law or practicing law, okay? And now you can take a step back. You can make that lower salary that you're being paid, but you don't need the legislative job anymore, right? Well, that goes for everybody. And I know that people are saying, well, that's going to lead it to elitism or whatever. I mean, you can do it the other way, but it's a lot harder. If you have a job back home, or if you're financially secure and you don't need the legislature to put a roof over your head, then you are a lot harder to corrupt. You can actually just make the decisions you want to make, and you don't have to worry about them trying to manipulate you and trying to figure out what your price is. We're going to take a break. I've gone way over. Tell me what you guys think about this new information. It seems like it never ends when it comes to more and more that is being uncovered here about the largest Arkansas political corruption scandal in the last 20 years, is what it's been dubbed by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It may turn out to be the largest political scandal in the history of the state of Arkansas. We'll be back in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
And they're still doing re-education camps, for crying out loud.
It's unbelievable.
And where are these people that decry the president's stance with China, knowing that information is out there and available if they just want to look? And yet they're acting like China is, some sort of paragon of virtue. And it's just not the case. They are extremely bad actors. We've talked about this at length, about their belligerent economic practices, and what that's about is less about their economy and more about their military. Their Belt and Road Initiative and what that portends. Their Made in China 2025 initiative, and how they really want to supplant the United States as the preeminent economic and military power on the globe. That's their goal, and they don't really care how they achieve it. They try to make people think that somehow they're engaged in some manner of quasi-capitalism, but everything over there is a state-owned entity, and it's highly subsidized because...
Yes. And we're back. And we're back. And we're back. Sorry, I'm doing my impression. Just a little follow-up. Last hour, we were talking about the raids in Mississippi. A couple weeks ago, you had the ICE raids where they scooped up 600-something people, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. Anyway, and we were talking about how Arkansas is kind of on edge. There, some reports. They saw an ICE bus a couple weeks ago, back on the 9th. That was like 10 days ago. They saw an ICE bus in Fayetteville. People freaking out. By the way, we got your meme of the day coming up at 7:50. It's a good one. I mentioned last hour, though, that after the ICE raids in Mississippi, that there were people that were lining up to be rehired, or not rehired, I'm sorry, but to be hired so that the chicken plants could recoup the labor force that they lost because they were employing all these illegal aliens. This from the Clarion Ledger. Many of the jobs available after Wednesday's immigration raid of poultry processing plants in 6 Mississippi towns call for experience with deboning chicken. A posting on the Mississippi Department of Employment Security lists 100 jobs for deboners. A person would need at least 6 months of experience to land a job that pays $10.80 per hour working in a plant. The job description says that some of the duties include removing bones from various poultry parts, including breasts, thighs, and legs. The update of the story, the latest numbers show more than 200 people applied for the jobs. Deboning chickens at the plants, $10.80 an hour, $10.82 an hour. What was that about jobs that Americans won't do? Honestly, I mean, if we were to believe the narratives, then these raids and taking illegal aliens would cripple the economy, wouldn't they? I mean, how are we going to eat our chicken? How are we going to eat our boneless chicken breasts? Right? Well, there's your answer, folks. Man, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we've been lied to about. Just things that we accept as truth, just blindly follow what the media tells us about our economy and everything else. And yet, here we are. There have been people on both sides that don't want to fix our immigration problem for a very long time because they're benefiting from it. They're benefiting from the chaos. And they come up with lines like, well, those are just jobs Americans won't do. And then the that's on the right, really, and the left. And then the left says we just need to have open borders because walls are immoral. We got half an hour coming your way next. When we come back, let's get to the other Democrat Gazette story from Michael Wickline. This one is very interesting. We'll give you that story in just a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
They're not trying to make a profit. They're trying to outlast other businesses. Their goal is to put products on the market at a discount and run other companies out of business and other nations, basically, out of the business of exporting products so they become the premier supplier of anything, whether it's electronics, whether it's machinery, you name it. That's what they want to do. And there are costs associated with doing business in China. If you're a U.S. manufacturer and you want to go put in a plant in China, be prepared to give up all your proprietary information, all your technology. And then within a very short period of time after you've started manufacturing your widget, there'll be a factory down the street that's manufacturing the exact same thing with a different label on it, but the same product. That's what they're about.
You mentioned, we're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. You mentioned that during your ag tour, you had a lot of nodding heads. So, I mean, I really feel like these are...
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Michael Wickline with the headline, Lee's ties to law firms noted in retiree system effort. Okay, so remember what we just talked about, okay? What was the last story, the big story that we just talked about, okay? We have FBI files show that John Goodson and Jeremy Hutchinson were under investigation back in 2013 because that $20,000 a month that he was getting as a state senator, was he getting that to, pass legislation? Anyway, that's what it was. Now, keep in mind, John Goodson and his Texarkana law firm, they entered into this agreement with Jeremy Hutchinson, all right? Okay, just keep that in mind, right, as we go into this other story that seems like it's not related, and it is just kind of indirectly related, I think. Michael Wickline, Lee's ties to law firms, is talking about the state auditor, constitutional officer, Andrea Lee. She's the state auditor. The Arkansas Public Employee Retirement System, okay? Sometimes the Arkansas Public Employee Retirement System is involved in class action lawsuits. Well, when they're involved in class action lawsuits, they need representation. Okay? Meaning they're going to need law firms to help them and represent them in court. Okay? Right? So, on Wednesday, the Arkansas Public Employees Retirement System will consider refreshing the list of potential law firms that represent it in class action lawsuits. Michael Wickline writes, 2.5 months after the state auditor bowed out of helping to develop a scoring system for evaluating which law firms would be good, which candidates would be good to have on our list, basically to have on the bench. Like, we need this law firm to help us here, that law firm to help us there. So what these law firms, once they become approved to be on the list to represent the Arkansas Public Employees Retirement System that makes investments and does things with your money, you know, the law firms become what's called a security monitoring firm or a security monitoring law firm, again, to represent the system and class action lawsuits over the investments. Now, these law firms, okay, are paid on a contingency fee basis. So we've got a lot of money. Millions of dollars are at stake if this law firm over here successfully represents the Arkansas Public Employee Retirement System in a suit. There's a lot of money that law firm is going to make by doing so. Michael Wickline again. State Auditor Andrea Lee, who also serves as a trustee for the retirement system, decided to extricate herself from helping the system staff develop the scoring system. She cited work done by one of the firms for her office. Her decision came shortly after a lobbyist for another firm pointed out to the system executive director, Duncan Baird, that Lee's 2014 campaign received contributions from Texarkana attorney John Goodson, his law firm, his law partner, and his daughter, $2,000 a pop. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, so $8,000. Right, there was I think it says $2,000 a piece here later in the article. So we now have John Goodson's law firm being brought up again. His law firm works jointly, according to Wickline, with another firm as one of the securities monitoring firms now used by the retirement system. The firms, okay, so John Goodson's law firm is on that bench that I was telling you about. He's on that list of approved law firms that can help the Arkansas teacher retirement system in class action lawsuits. And they have reapplied to continue working for that system. Okay? Michael Wickline says in a recent interview, Lee said she was unaware of the text to Duncan Baird from lobbyist Rhett Hatcher before she decided against helping develop the scoring system. She said she had learned of the text from a reporter from the Gazette. Goodson issued a written statement Saturday, quote, "We continue to have a long-standing working relationship with APERS dating back as far as 2005. Due to present ongoing litigation on behalf of APERS, we are unable to comment at this time." So that's Goodson's statement. I'm sorry. John Goodson issued a statement. That's his law firm saying that they can't comment anymore on this because they're working for the Arkansas teacher retirement system right now. Now, this is where I think, Michael, this is so interesting to me, and I'm really, really glad that Michael Wickline decided to write the rest of this article the way he did. Because he asked the question, which security monitoring firms are retained by the Public Employee Retirement System and the Arkansas Teacher Retirement System, okay? And so he lists them. Let's see here. Controversy last year, one such firm, the Labaton Sucaro law firm. I remember this one. I remember doing a story on this one. Labaton Sucro law firm paying a $4.1 million referral fee to a Texas-based attorney as part of a settlement of a class action lawsuit. The lead plaintiff in that case is the Teacher Retirement System. Teacher Retirement System Executive Director Clint Roden said he hopes that by the end of the month, the system issues a request for qualifications for security monitoring firms, I guess law firms. A request for qualifications is one step involving the procuring services. The two systems are state government's largest, with investments that exceed $17 billion in teacher system and $8 billion in the employee system. One might ask the question why teachers aren't considered state employees. Anyway, I know teachers have asked that question for a very long time. Okay, Duncan Baird, who's a former state representative, and he's the head of the public employee retirement system, said the attorneys or the law firms that are currently approved to represent it in class action lawsuits are Bernstein, Litowitz, Berger, and Grossman, Cohen, Millenstein, Sellers, and Toll, Kessler, Topaz, and Meltzer, and Check, Labaton Sucro, I'm probably saying that wrong, Nix, Patterson, and Roach, Spector, Rossman, Kodroff, and Willis. Okay. In mid-January, at least suggesting, trustees decided it was time to refresh their list. The system last hired such firms in 2013. Baird said the request for qualifications was issued April 15, and the deadline for applications was April 30th. All of the current firms reapplied except for Spector, Rossman, Kondroff, and Willis. Other firms submitted. Let's see, keep going down here. Then we get to a text message, okay? In the text message to Baird dated May 16th, Hatcher circled campaign contributions on one of Lee's 2014 campaign finance reports for the primary election, noting donations, $2,000 apiece, from Goodson's law partner, and it goes on. Hatcher also noted that Nix Patterson law firm and Keel and Goodson law firm jointly submitted their qualifications to continue to be employed by the retirement system. His text message to Baird was obtained by this newspaper in a public records request under the Arkansas FOIA. Hatcher is a partner in the Gilmore Strategy Group that represents the Berger Montague law firm. The Gilmore Strategy Group's president is John Gilmore, a former deputy chief of staff of Governor Hutchinson and now governor's chief political strategist. Hatcher contributed $150 to Lee's campaign in 2014 when he worked for Secretary of State Mark Martin, and then $100 to Lee's reelection campaign when he worked for Hutchinson, according to Lee's campaign finance reports. I know it's an extensive article, but listen to this. Because eventually, former lawmakers, this is the part of the story that I absolutely love. Go down to former lawmakers, Joe. It's the subheadline. Duncan Baird himself is a former lawmaker. The Republican was a representative from Lowell from 2009 to 2015 and then worked for Hutchinson. He was hired as the retirement system director in January and started work in April. Other former lawmakers have connections to security monitoring firms. Again, security monitoring firm, that all that is a law firm that gets to make a ton of money if they represent the retirement system in a class action lawsuit and win. Former State Senator Michael Lamoureux of Russellville, who is Hutchinson's former chief of staff, exchanged text messages with Baird on April 9th and 10th in which he said he is representing the Kessler Topaz law firm. In a text to this newspaper last week, Lamoureux said he is not a lobbyist for Kessler Topaz. That's interesting. Quote, the law firm I work for works on cases jointly with them. A lot of joint cooperation here. He said, adding that he is counsel to Keel and Goodson. Okay, Keel and Goodson. Lamoureux said he had no comment about Hatcher's text message to Baird. He said he also has his own lobbying firm, Capital Square Strategy in Arkansas, and works for DBH Management Consultants, which includes former State Representative Bruce Hawkins and Washington Advocacy Group. The Washington Advocacy Group also includes Goodson and Keel, according to its website. Wow, it's kind of one big family. DBH Management Consultants represents Bernstein, Litowitz, Berger, and Grossman, according to the Secretary of State's office. Okay, another law firm. The Capital Advisors Group lobbying firm, which includes former Republican Representative John Burris of Harrison, represents Labaton Soukuro, according to the Secretary of State's office. Mullinex and Associates, which includes former Representative Ted Mullinex, Republican Hot Springs, represents Kaplan Fox, according to the Secretary of State's office. WSG Consulting, which includes former Representatives Robbie Willis, Democrat Conway, Bill Stovall, Democrat Quitman, and Rick Green, Republican Van Buren, represents Wolf, Hadelstein, Adler, Freeman, and Hers, according to Secretary of State's office. The Perimeter Group, which includes former reps Tommy Wren and Ernest Cunningham, represents the Rosen Law Firm, according to the Secretary of State's office. Other lobbying firms representing security monitoring firms, again, these are law firms that stand to make millions of dollars, include M&M Strategies, which represents Kessler Topaz, Impact Management Group, which represents the Pomerantz Law Firm, and Pascal Strategic Communications, which represents Block and Levitin, according to the Secretary of State's office. The trustees for the Arkansas Public Employee Retirement System, Michael Wickline writes, includes 7 appointees of Hutchinson. The Board of Trustees also includes Andrea Lee and Republican State Treasurer Dennis Milligan. Quote, I do make appointments to the APERS board, but I expect them to manage the retirement funds and system based upon their good judgment and business skills, Hutchinson said Friday in a written statement. I have not expressed any views to any board member on who should be selected as the securities monitoring firm, nor am I aware of the list of firms that are under consideration. That's the governor in a statement there. So you can see kind of it's a very tangled web, right? How in the world are the people supposed to make heads or tails of all that? I just read for you a list of former state representatives who work for lobbying groups, whose lobbying groups contract with the law firms that want to be on this list in order to make a bunch of money. They make a bunch of money, then they're also able to retain the lobbying groups that give them access, and it's a big, big circle, isn't it? I mean, it's just one, and it's extremely complicated. And you know the one thing I've learned in politics over my 10 years of doing this show? I have learned that the more complicated a system is, the more opportunity there is for corruption. And you got to actually add something to that. The more complicated something is, the smaller group of people that understands it. And the smaller group of people that understand a complex system, the more opportunity there is for corruption. And listen, it is what it is. You know, the fact that John Goodson's firm is involved here, and he was also involved. You know, you could certainly say those are two separate issues. Him being involved in giving Jeremy Hutchinson that $20,000 versus him being involved doing this. You can certainly claim, but the fact of the matter is, all of this stuff, how in the world, knowing this, does the average Arkansan have confidence in their government? I mean, if you're an Arkansas state employee or an Arkansas teacher, this is your retirement. How in the world do you guys feel about this? This is your retirement account. And yeah, granted, you got to have good representation. Obviously, you got to have good representation if you're being sued in some class action lawsuit over investments or whatever. That's just going to happen. You can sue anybody for any reason, anytime. And it's not that it's not that we are, it's not that you don't need representation. But, my goodness, what is the role of government in the first place? And we've got all these people that are invested in this, their retirement's invested in this. and just look at the people who are on the outside looking to make a buck. It's just nuts to me. Nuts to me. And, you have a text message here from a lobbyist that gets the state auditor to kind of bow out. And she said here, by the way, I want to make clear that she did say that she did not want to monkey this up at all and wanted to bow out. I don't have it right here. Oh, Lee wrote in an email dated May 29th. Upon further reflection, out of abundance of caution, I believe it best for me to bow out of these meetings about developing a scoring criteria of which law firm's going to make the list and just vote with the board after you all bring a list of recommendations. Essentially saying she doesn't want to do anything that looks bad, based on, previous associations with whoever. So I wanted to make that clear that's her statement on the matter. But, man, it's just interesting what happens. I mean, Michael Wickline is sniffing up a very big tree, a lot of branches in that tree, a lot of connections. I'd like to see more of this. This is a big story. The Goodson story with Jeremy Hutchinson and the unsealed documents. That's a big story. But I want to make something clear here. The story that we covered on Friday is much larger than any of these. And that has to do with Carter Heavy Industries, a company that is in the Shandong province, a province that our governor and our economic development team have been to many times. We are recruiting all of these Chinese communist entities into Arkansas, and the Senate Intelligence Committee releases their report where they find that Hillary Clinton's emails, all 30,000 of them except for 4, were being forwarded to a Gmail address that's the same name as a Chinese company in the Shandong province. It's also the same place where there are two universities that have been, according to a New York Times report in 2010, accused of being the universities that are there in the Shandong province to specifically hack and steal intellectual property and hack into, American companies. That, to me, is a huge story because it should have every reporter in the state asking, why are we bringing Chinese entities into Arkansas? Why is this our chief economic development strategy? And given to the fact, and I know it was an IT guy that set up the Gmail account, but why did Paul Combetta, the IT guy who's now been given immunity, who went on Reddit and asked how to bleach bit Hillary Clinton's emails on Reddit with, I have a very VIP client, he said. Why did he set up a Gmail account with a Chinese company's name? And why did all those emails forward to that account? And did China have access? Did Carter Heavy Industries have access to it? Something is weird. I've been asking why China this whole time. Why is ASA in China? Why is Arkansas in China? Why are they trying to make this union, bringing Beijing to Arkansas? Their own publications at the AEDC say this. I should have been asking, what about the Shandong province is so appealing as well? This story is much bigger than any of these. Much bigger. And here is where you start. This is where you start. You ask yourself the question, why would China treat Arkansas any different than they treat Mozambique, than they treat Cuba, than they treat Zimbabwe? Before they go in and exploit resources or put their communist entities in those countries, the first thing they do without fail is they find the corrupt politicians and they pay them money. That's the first thing they do. Why would we think they are treating Arkansas any different? In light of Jeremy Hutchinson, John Woods, Jake Files, Mike O'Neill, Rusty Cranford. I mean, China would fit in really good. They would find takers. That's the big story this week. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Arkansas farmers, and I saw a story, excuse me, with Iowa farmers as well. They really seem to have a mindset that is geared towards patriotism. They realize that the way things have been being done have got to change. Is that your take on Arkansas farmers?
Well, I saw a poll August 7th, so it's not too, it's pretty recent, not very old. Purdue University. Purdue University is a premier land-grant institution. So in the state of Indiana, Purdue is like the University of Arkansas here. It's a land-grant institution that's geared heavily toward agriculture. They put out, conducted a poll, and they published the results of that poll, I believe, on August 7th, and shows that 78% of farmers support Trump's posture with regard to China. 78%. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's when you compare that to the landscape now, the economic landscape that farmers are dealing with regard to not only, obviously.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. Let's get to your meme of the day, shall we? This one is a personal favorite of mine. If you grew up under the propaganda arm of the environmentalists like Al Gore and Linda Ellerbee over at Nickelodeon, then you remember a show called Captain Planet. I don't think this was actually aired on Nickelodeon. I think this was a Fox prop, but still, you had that Captain Planet. You had the, 5 teenagers. They had their rings, and it was, you always felt bad for the guy that had the heart when you're like, man, what a little girl that guy is. Can you say that in today's day and age? I don't think you can. But anyway, so, when they would create Captain Planet, they would use their rings, and it was like fire, wind, earth, water, heart. With your powers combined, I am Captain Planet. This one is just got the rings reorganized, retitled Crooked Politicians, Homeless Junkies, Illegal Immigration, Gang Violence, Perpetual Debt and Taxes. With your powers combined, I'm California. Arkansas, have a great Monday. We're not California yet. Let's not even get close to it. How about it? We'll see you tomorrow, 6:05. Don't forget, go to conduitnews.com for the SoundCloud, iOS, podcast, video archives, and Arkansas stories and more. Be safe.